Own your story before it owns you, step 4. If you've been following the steps in the process, I want to say a big congratulations. You're well on your way. You've identified the negative emotion, moved beyond denial, and separated truth from lies. Yet if we stop there, our behavior often doesn't change. We've done all the emotional work, true, but something more must be done to get us to where we want to go. In essence, we've put gas in the gas tank, checked the mirrors, and seat belted up. Now it's time to turn on the ignition. Because we have this wonderful thing called memory, we may find that even though we have consciously shifted our mindset, we may return to former ways of thinking. We lived in that way of thinking, that story, for a long time, and we had become convinced that we were defined by that story. Now we must separate the memory from the past from the decision of the present. Brené Brown puts it this way: when we deny the story, it defines us. But no longer, no more will we let that pattern of thinking, that story, define who we are. How do we put this into action? How do we keep from allowing our stories to define us? Surprisingly, this action is another decision. No matter what has happened to us in the past, no matter how we have handled situations yesterday, we will be held there, trapped, if we don't break out of the memories that have chains around us. We must forgive. It's the only way. If this step seems impossible to you, then perhaps seeing the progression of the thought process will help. A negative emotion, traumatic memory, negative emotion, denial, capture. Did you see it? Without even realizing it, we're easily captured and held hostage in a traumatic memory. Notice the word in and not by. If we do not resolve and reconcile a past traumatic event with a present rescue, we are simply captured, stuck in that part of our story. Eventually, we relate to the capture as a perpetual state of being, believing that our prison-like circumstances will never change, but they can. We often are reluctant to forgive offending parties because we mistakenly equate forgiveness with injustice. We think that if we truly forgive someone, that person will be let off the hook and never face appropriate justice. We must come to realize that by not forgiving, we simply stay in our prison, even when the prison guard has unlocked the cell. In truth, we are free to leave any time. For most of us, the act of forgiving is not easy, but the action is absolutely necessary. We must walk out of the cell, held captive no more. Emotional freedom is worth the risk of doing something foreign, something with which we are not familiar. Yet the freedom is well worth the risk. And don't think that forgiveness applies only to forgiving others. Often forgiving ourselves is vital to us moving forward. As you go forward, keep short accounts. Through forgiveness, you have just released a ton of excess baggage in your life. Resist the urge to fill up your empty suitcase with more offenses. Deal with conflicts as they arise, and every day, empty your suitcase. These are conscious emotional actions over which you and you alone have control. If you choose not to forgive, your story will begin to own you. When you choose to forgive, you own the story. You not only gain peace for yourself, but your ability to influence, impact, and empower others increases exponentially because you have consciously released the past. Freely forgiving others and yourself is the biggest step to owning your story. Your story matters.